So on today's episode of Buff's Garage, we're going to try to get the old Suburban here to quit whining. I know I'm putting it through a lot of work right now because the Avi is down. The Pontiac Grand Prix is not finished. I mean, really, I'm running out of vehicles. I mean, 7 isn't enough, right? So we're going to see if we can fix the whine on this and, I don't know, maybe get it back to full-time duty status. Let's see. Well, despite the fact that we have a huge puddle underneath the Pontiac, yeah, it's all trans fluid, so not sure where that's coming from. Well, I see now why the trans doesn't stay working. It's leaking out a lot. So that's something we're going to have to deal with. But as much fun as that's going to be, I really need to get the family truckster back in here. The ever-present whine isn't getting any better. It's not really getting any worse either, but I think I have a solution. I got a brand new torque converter we're going to throw in it, and that means Pontiac's going to have to go back outside, and we'll deal with this later. But we'll get the truckster in here, get it jacked up, get underneath of it, and try to find out why it's making that whine. While I'm in there, I went ahead and got a rear main seal kit, so we're going to try to fix, or at least slow down, the leaks in the back of the engine. And when that's all done, and while it's nice and empty, we'll pull the Pontiac back in and try to figure out why it's leaking. But anyway, I'm going to get that started. This should be fun. Nope. I'm telling you guys, I'll put the link down in the description. Get one of these. This was the bigger one, so it can handle bigger engines, even diesels. But they make a smaller version of this that I've used as well. They just work amazing. They're really compact. Like I said, this is the bigger version. There's a smaller version. You know, you just charge them with your USB charger, and then you hook them up, and you got instant battery. And in this time of year, when you're shuffling vehicles around, or you know, you got kind of a weak battery and you get a cold snap, this will get you going again. Of course, then you need to figure out what's going on with your battery, but these are nice. I'll put the link down in the description. Give me power. Well, since that heater that Dad got me works, but smokes like crazy, I don't want to deal with it right now. And so I'm just gonna have to brave the cold, and you know, it's nothing you guys don't deal with. Heck, a lot of you don't even have shelter. You're doing it in your driveway. So I'm just gonna jump in here, you know, drop the transmission because, you know, that's something we do every day. Once I get that out, I'm gonna pull the torque converter, make sure there's no other problems that I see. Obviously, I wanna get this back together as quick as possible, but I do wanna take a moment to go ahead and address the leaking seal in the back of the engine. So I guess nothing better to do than just jump in there. All right, the last time we were under here, we were dealing with some leaking coming from the rear diff, and I will just say that it hasn't slowed down. So the entire rear diff is just coated in oil. So that means two things. Number one, it has oil. Number two, it has a pretty significant leak. And it looks like it's all coming from the front. So one more thing we got to deal with, but not right now. The rust prevention is just on point, like pretty phenomenal. To get our trans out, we need to get these little guys out. Really. It's got to be the one I didn't bring. I mean, it's just got to be. Ow. Well, it's not that one either. So I changed these U-joints out a couple years ago. Doesn't mean they can't be bad again, but they don't seem bad. The pinion seems solid. I think it's just leaking around the seal there. If I were smart, I would have got the provisions to fix the rear, but I'm not. So we'll deal with it on another day. I'm going to be upset if it's just this bushing back here that's making all the noise. U-joints still feel okay. So it's just a matter of looping them up before we put them back in. Time to move down this way. All right, so I think what we need to do is go ahead and drop this cross member here, loosen up our bolts. Yeah, that's all oil, not trans fluid. So we got a pretty significant leak up there. Anyway, drop this, get all our trans bolts loose, and yeah, make it happen. This is gonna suck. So I spent the better part of several hours, probably like 4 hours, fighting the bolts at the front of the bell housing. Those top bolts are just a bear. So to anyone with this particular engine, I'm sorry. I hope you never have to do what I just had to do. Then the cross member was fairly simple to get out, but with the exhaust still in place and the transmission the way I've got it wedged in there, the cross member was a little bit of a bear, but there's so much oil on that cross member. It's just everywhere. But I think we're ready to go ahead and start dropping this. Understand I've not unhooked all the lines and the wires and everything else, because our goal is just to get to the torque converter and not necessarily completely pull this out. Once I got all my ducks in a row here. I mean, who puts ducks in a row? Well, let's see if I can drop a transmission. Before I do that, he's definitely loose and heavy. Fall out, please. Slower. Not sure what that was, but it relieved itself. There's that. We're gonna have to pull those lines. That sucks. Well, with honestly way too much effort, I got that out. Now, the biggest concern I have is if that pump's any good at all. But we're gonna put a new torque converter in it and hope that stops the whine. If not, we're gonna be doing this again to pull the pump. But we got a lot of oil leaking, not just because of the trans, there is a little trans fluid there, but the back side of this engine is just pouring oil out of it. And you know, everything is rust prevented under here. So I'm gonna make a clean spot for me to work, and we're gonna crawl up in here, pull the flywheel off, go ahead and replace that rear main, and then we're gonna reassemble everything and hope it goes back together, and God, let's hope it works. Here we got the new one next to the old one. And you know, I'm fairly certain that's the original. I know that the transmission's been, well, I know the transmission's had work to it, and it looks like the front pump has been changed, but I honestly don't know what all they did to it, but obviously didn't change the torque converter. I'm pretty sure that's the original. So we're gonna fill this one up and get it put in. Well, here's a major bummer. I'm not sure if this happened while I was getting bolts loose or if this has been like this for a while. But back underneath the distributor, this is the oil pressure sending unit. And it's broken. That could definitely explain why we got oil everywhere. But, you know, it could have gotten broken today as well. I don't know. All I know is it's broken and no one has one in stock, because why would they? So it's going to be fun trying to get this truck running to go to work tomorrow. So there's the other half of that switch. You can see that's a metal base where the plastic was in there and then of course just snapped off. So it is very likely that while removing these bolts, that happened. But it is also possible that it's been like that for a while. But I don't think we're going to leave it like that. So of course the parts aren't available today, and I have no vehicle to go get any if I could find them. So what we're going to do instead is try to pull this off and then, I don't know, try to find a brass plug or something. Oh, we'll figure it out. So that was fun. One of the bolts decided not to come out, and I tried to use my extractor tool. It's a little socket that's supposed to extract the bolt. Well, it just rounded it off, so, you know, grinder always works. So we obviously got a leak around our rear main seal. I'm still trying to figure out how to get those two bolts out because I don't want to drop the entire oil pan. So this may not be a finish it today kind of thing. And finally we have victory. Rear main seal's out. I got the new kit. So we're going to get that put in and hopefully back in. All right, we got the rear main seal back in. I put a little bit of RTV around the bottom because it's supposed to have a gasket there, but it didn't have a gasket when I took it apart, which was part of my leak. So it had a lot of RTV that was just leaking. So we re-RTV'd it because, yeah, that's what we got. But it's got the new rear main seal in where it was leaking through that as well, but we've got that replaced. So now I guess we're ready to put stuff back together. Okay, flywheel's back in place, minus one bolt. I did get the other broken bolt out, but I don't have another flywheel bolt at this moment. But I have a feeling I'm gonna have this back out again soon, so I'm not gonna worry about it right now. Everything is torqued to spec, so transmission's going back in. Got the heater going. It's about 15 degrees outside. This is what happens when you're installing your transmission and it falls off the jack. You get a bloodbath. But ratchet straps, got the jack in place, got 3 out of 4 bolts going in on the bottom. Still got the 2 on the top to do. And then we'll do our flex plate converter bolts and cross member. We should be real close to being done. Well, thanks to the wonderful folks at my local Napa, I was able to get the couple of parts I needed to finish the Suburban. So this is an oil pressure sending unit that I broke while trying to take the transmission out. And while doing that, I noticed that this little coupler has, you know, little plastic there. It's a press fit type thing. You press it in and it clicks, and mine's leaking. So I'm assuming it's original. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. And it doesn't fix our whining noise, but it gets my gauge to work again, which is super important. So there's a lot, obviously, that we missed. And the reason why is because it was getting late at night. This was taking a lot more effort than I really wanted to. Things were breaking, and of course, I dropped the transmission on myself. And when I dropped it, 4L80E is not a light transmission. And since the dipstick was not properly seated where it should have been, I then wore the majority, I think it's about 13 quarts of ATF all over me, head to toe, hair, in my mouth, in my beard, all over my clothes, and it's still all over the garage floor. But we got this thing put back together, back out on the road, took it for a test drive, and guess what? It's still whining. So the most likely culprit now is the rear pinion. I really didn't want to deal with it, but it does have an obvious leak through the rear differential. This 14-bolt rear end for a 3/4 ton Suburban has several little pieces that go along, and one of them is leaking. And the factory replacement seal is just RTV. So I could just pull it apart and do that, but if I'm going to do that, then I should probably fix the pinion. And I'm not very good at it because that's why the Avalanche is still sitting there. Tried to fix its pinion bearing and I failed at it. Got to get it just right or it fails. So I'm not even going to attempt it with this one. I think I know where I can find another 14 bolt for a 3/4 ton. Hopefully it fits. And if it does, you'll see that on a later episode of Buff's Garage. But in the meantime, I'm working up something for early December. It's going to include some lives. It's going to include some help from you guys. But most of all, it's going to be a new project. So stay tuned to Buff's Garage. There's more coming.